Mr. Chairman, I didn't think I'd see a video clip of former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich as part of your presentation. Convicted, serving time, received a pardon from President Trump. This is such a political hearing, and it shouldn't be. What's at stake here is something that we all value, and that is the safety in our families, in our homes, and our neighborhoods. I regret that you have referenced this hearing to focus on, quote, blue city chaos. That is a political reference, for sure. Mr. Chairman, violent crime is on the decline, but statistics don't mean much to victims, and I thank Ms. Cook for being here. As a father, I can only imagine your grief, and I thank you for your courage in testifying. Any crime is too much crime, and every American deserves to feel safe. So we should be working together on a bipartisan basis, which we have done over and over again in this committee, to continue reducing crime and making our communities safer for all Americans. Unfortunately, this hearing is not going to help us reach that goal. Look no further than its title, Blue City Chaos, which falsely suggests that communities with Democratic leaders are less safe than communities with Republican leaders. Let's look at the reality. For the last 2 decades, the murder rate in my home state of Illinois has been lower than the murder rate in Missouri, Louisiana, and Alabama, all states represented by Republicans on this committee. Or take a look at Shreveport, Louisiana, a city with a Republican mayor and a Republican governor, represented in Congress by the Speaker of the House and 2 Republican senators. FBI statistics show that Shreveport has a higher violent crime rate than Washington, D.C. In 2023, Illinois spent $516 per capita on policing, more than the state of Iowa, South Carolina, Texas, Utah, Missouri, North Carolina, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Alabama. Who is funding police? In Chicago, over the first 6 months of this year, homicide rates are down 32%, shootings have dropped 37%. We need to build on this success, not ignore it. During my time as chair of this committee, I held more than a dozen hearings on reducing violent crime. We focused on legislation, not lamentation. I reported numerous bills supporting law enforcement that were signed into law by President Biden, including Protecting America's First Responders Act and the Recruit and Retain Act. And we passed the historic bipartisan Safer Communities Act to crack down on gun violence. Instead of political theater and partisan attacks, we should focus on providing proven efforts like the HEAL Initiative, a project I launched in 2018 with 10 of Chicago's largest hospitals to address the root causes of violence in 18 Chicago neighborhoods with the highest rates of violence, poverty, and health disparity. Unfortunately, President Trump has done everything he can to undermine efforts like this. He cut $169 million from community safety funding authorized by the bipartisan Safer Communities Act. He cut $72 million in funding for state and local law enforcement. The 2026 Trump budget would slash the High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas Program, better known as HIDA, by more than a third, from about $300 million to $196 million. These HIDA cuts are strongly opposed by law enforcement. And the Trump White House itself conceded that HIDA is, quote, an effective and efficient use of taxpayers' money and an important tool in the nation's effort to stop drug trafficking and save American lives. While President Trump claims to be tough on crime, he granted full and unconditional pardon to nearly 1,600 January 6 rioters, including more than 600 charged with assaulting law enforcement. Here's the reality. President Trump isn't interested in reducing crime. He's interested in political posturing. 100 troops into the city of Chicago. Did you hear the announcement this morning by the Secretary of Defense? One of the characteristics he insists on when it comes to building a strong military is that it be apolitical. His word, apolitical. The president has deployed thousands of troops to Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., and made disturbing threats to wage war against Chicago, Portland, and other American cities. Let's be clear, these are illegal, unconstitutional, and un-American power grabs by the president that actually endangers Americans. President Trump is looking for an excuse to send soldiers into American communities so he can play the role of strongman on television. In Illinois, his misguided mass deportation is targeting communities, but it's not making them safer. Remember the litany that we heard over and over again about immigrants to this country? Rapists, murderers, terrorists, the criminally insane. Did you know that 70% of the immigrants detained so far by the president so far have no criminal conviction? None. The administration's main focus seems to be photo ops for social media, like these pictures from downtown Chicago of armed, masked men just happen to feature the Trump Tower in the background. And just yesterday, we learned the Department of Homeland Security requested the deployment of 100 military personnel to Illinois over the objections of the governor. Simply put, despite what the Secretary of Defense said at Quantico this morning, the president's use of the military to police American streets is political theater, staged for his MAGA supporters, not effective law enforcement aimed at making communities safer. Meanwhile, thousands of FBI, DEA, and ATF agents, as well as thousands of service members across this country, have been diverted from critical missions to carry out the president's immigration agenda. Not surprisingly, federal drug prosecutions this year have dropped to the lowest in decades. So to parade the military in these cities, we are diverting talent and skill away from federal drug prosecutions. Does that make America safe? We need to support law enforcement and policies that improve and not erode trust between them and our communities. As a ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, I will not sit idly by while this president tramples the Constitution. And I will use every tool at my disposal to reduce crime and protect our communities in a lawful way that promotes lasting change. I yield.